Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Skype sessions. About a year ago, I had on the creator of the YouTube channel Into the Wardrobe, and we have him back again today. So, Stuart Hunt, welcome back to Pints with Jack.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
So, bring me up to speed. How are you? How is the channel? What's been happening?
Yeah, it's been a great year. The channel is doing well. Had some very big milestones this year. We just hit 30,000 subscribers, which is encouraging. Just about a month ago, I got an email from YouTube actually letting me know that they had selected the channel to be one of their featured up-and-coming content creators. And so for a full day, our channel was the #1 position on the home screen, right above,
Wow.
I believe, it was a Kim Kardashian announcement that was above that, and a Mr. Beast video. And so that was great. I've had some really good, successful videos recently talking about the life and death of Lucy. We just released one that is about the what I call the real problem with Susan. Lest anyone has had heard enough about the problem with Susan, I said I've got to get mine in before we're completely sick of it, if not already. And so it's been fun. We've got one coming out soon, kind of moving away from some of the literary analysis and back to just straight lore. And we'll be talking about the life of Caspian.
Wonderful. Well, on our show, on the audio part of our podcast, we've just finished The Horse and His Boy. And I thought that was therefore a good time to bring you back onto a Skype session to talk about your videos about the Calormen god Tash. And viewers, we're not going to cover everything in excruciating detail because basically I want you to go and watch Stuart's videos. And so there'll be a link in the show notes where you can do that. But I want to talk about Tash for a little bit and in particular talk about some of the theories that you offer as to Tash's origins. So to begin with, what do we know about Tash from the books?
Well, so you just finished The Horse and His Boy, and that is the first time that we hear about Tash. It's, when we really get to dig into Calormen culture, which, by the way, I should say, for years, I said Calormen, and it's still debated whether or not it's Calormen or Calormen, but I'll go with your pronunciation today for sure. And during that time, we discover for the first time that this is Narnia is a place where there are other religions besides what we would think of as the friendship of Aslan. And Tash is, we learned that there's a temple and that there are festivals and feasts apparently to this god Tash. It's where it seems to be the center of the Calormen culture and religion is the Temple of Tash at the hill of the city there. And so from there, we learn more about him in The Last Battle, which I don't know if we want to talk about that now or get into that later.
You can go with it. I'm assuming anybody watching this has read the entire series. Not everybody is like my co-host Matt and, is reading them along and currently doesn't know what's going to happen.
Great. Yeah, so I don't believe that in The Horse and His Boy, we learn much more than what I just mentioned. We don't know, who he is, what he looks like, what his capabilities are. But the first thing that we see in The Last Battle is one of the most chilling scenes, I believe, in all of the Narnian series. As they're walking through the forest, suddenly they see in the distance a creature almost floating or levitating across the ground, moving, seems to not notice them, seems to pay them no attention as he comes and goes. I think they're first made aware of his presence by, I believe it's the smell.
That was what got me as a kid. That was what really freaked me out, the fact that I could smell him.
Yeah, I think for me it was the fact that as he moved, the grass withered and died underneath him. And there was a dark figure. I'm from the South here, and I grew up in the forest, and we always, talked about some of these cryptozoological creatures in my area. So there were Bigfoots, and there were swamp men, and Mothman isn't too far from here. And so I've always, when I'm in the woods and I love to be out in nature, I'm always wondering in the back of my mind, anyway, as a child, like what is out here with me. And so maybe that's one of the reasons it's so chilling is finally, some of your childhood fears are realized is, yes, these creatures of the forest, they're around you and they're making their presence known. And so instantly we see that Tash is, this very freakish figure. It's the first time in all of Narnian stories that we see a creature that we have never heard of before in our earthly mythology. So that he's not an animal per se, and he's not a faun, and he's not a centaur. Some of these classical creatures. He is a totally new creature that we have never encountered before. He's skeletal, and he has a beak like a buzzard or a raptor. He has, is it forearm or I believe it's forearms. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember now. And he has wings, and then when we see the Pauline
Does he
Baines
have wings?
illustrations, I know is he feathered? He does not have wings. You're right.
Got feathers,
Yes, thank you.
definitely.
Yeah, he has feathers but not wings. And then in the Pauline Baines illustrations, we see that he has clothing, so he has jewelry and a headpiece. Just very, very odd and very, I think, disturbing.
Yeah, and it really does beg the question: is like, what is this? Because even when I was a kid, I was aware of other mythologies and other creatures like fauns, etc. But yeah, you're right. When we come across this creature, this doesn't seem familiar at all, and that almost makes it creepier because it's something unknown that we haven't encountered before.
Yeah. It's also obvious that he's something otherworldly, or at least supernatural. I think he's almost described as almost being translucent, like you could see through him. It reminds me a bit of like the smoke monster from Lost or something like that in that sense. But instantly the way that he's described that this is something evil, this is something dark, dangerous. I believe that Lewis, was trying to make it very obvious that there's a connection between Tash and death, that he's a harbinger of death and destruction.
Now, in one of your videos, you go through 3 main theories about the origins of Tash, because it really does beg the question, where does this guy come from? Particularly once we've read The Magician's Nephew, we hear about the creation, and there isn't a creature like this mentioned at all. So just give us some outline. What are some of these origin theories?
Yeah, I think we try to reconcile that. We think, did Aslan create a creature like this? We know that he created Narnia good. So how could something like this have come into being in this world that, yes, was corrupted, but did it mean that genetically, new creatures were created, or did he find his way here to Narnia? So I won't tell them in the order that is in the video. You have to watch the video to kind of get some of these details. But one of the first theories was that perhaps Tash is a fallen star. And we know in Narnia that stars have personalities, and that they can fall especially when they have done something that demands for them to be cast out of the sky. We know that. So I compare in the video Tash to the biblical figure of Wormwood, which was a star that fell and brought death and destruction. Also, there's a connection between fallen stars in the Bible and demons. And Tash is obviously, I believe he's even called a demon in the last battle. And so, that's one idea, that Tash could very well be a demon, and a demon that is a fallen star.
And just to clarify for Lewis fans, this Wormwood isn't the Wormwood from the Screwtape Letters, although probably related in some way.
Right.
And the fallen stars that we meet I think they're all in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, when we meet a star at rest, Ramandu, and we meet a star who's clearly done something not quite right in Kuriakin.
That's right. Yep.
So that was one theory. What else have you got?
So the next theory was that maybe Tash was actually a created creature by Aslan, but a cursed creature. So in the timeline that's printed by C.S. Lewis in the book Past Watchful Dragons, we learn that there was a time during the Calormen expansion that a group of Calormenes actually moved into the area that would later become known as Telmar. And while they were there, we don't know what it is, but something terrible happened. Something so terrible that Aslan turned the entire population into talking beasts. And so the theory goes that maybe Tash was the leader of this group, and he, as the leader, was so responsible, held so much responsibility for whatever this horrendous atrocity was, that he was extra cursed, and he was turned into a beast, but a different type of beast.
And we definitely have precedent for that from The Horse and His Boy, where Rapidash is turned into a donkey.
Turned into a donkey, and then where was he sent in order to be, turned back into human form? He was sent to the Temple of Tash.
Now, I think both of these are really good theories, but the third one, it broke my brain, as all of your final theories always do, but I think it's also got some interesting implications. So what's the final option that you give us?
Yeah, so for the third theory, I started to think about, if Tash wasn't from Narnia, if he didn't originate in Narnia, where would he have come from and how did he get here? And, I thought something interesting. I came across a blog post actually from someone else that had a fantastic theory. And I thought, this is incredible. And the idea goes like this. When you look at Tash's clothing, you see that it's not really Telmarine in nature.
Or Calormen.
Yes, or Calormen. It's very different. It's got more of in our world, more of a Babylonian look to it. And so, as the blog poster pointed out, he said, the only other place that we've seen dress that's more Mesopotamian or Babylonian was actually in Charn. And so we went and looked at the throne room with all of the long rows of statues where Jadis was seated in suspended animation. And sure enough, if you look at the dress and the garb, it's very Babylonian. Then they said, as I was looking through the pictures and the illustrations from Pauline Baynes, I noticed something fascinating. And if you zoom in, there's a picture that you can see on the video if you go back and watch it. If you zoom in, there's a gateway that has looks like carvings of different creatures and different almost hieroglyphic type carvings. But one carving looks remarkably like Tash. And so the question is, if Tash was from this world of Charn, how would he have gotten to Narnia? He didn't, as we know, that we know of, have access to the wood between the worlds. Maybe something may have happened, but what if Tash truly was a demon, and if he truly was a spiritual in nature? The theory is that Tash may have possessed Jadis, and that when Jadis passed through the wood between the worlds into Narnia, that she brought Tash with her.
And it would explain how there could be something left in Charn after she had spoken the deplorable word. Maybe that killed everything that was mortal and corporeal, but either left Tash alone or brought Tash into existence. And what I really like about this theory is it explains how the Calormen had liberty from the White Witch. Because when you read The Horse and His Boy, it's clear that they know what went on in Narnia. The fact that there was this powerful sorceress and that she's now gone. So there's some level of communication between the two. But I've always found it strange that, well, if there was this other culture, surely the White Witch would go after them as well. Why would she just stop at Narnia? And this theory lends to an explanation as to why. It's because she also had control over Narnia through Tash. Or maybe Tash had control of Narnia through the White Witch, depending upon how that relationship works. But it then means that the dominion of evil was then, throughout the world of Narnia and not just the country.
Yeah. I think it also speaks to a spiritual reality that I think Lewis very much believed in that there's the physical evil let me start that over. Sorry. I think it also speaks to a spiritual reality that I think Lewis very much believed in, that there's not only the physical evil in the world, but there's also a partnership between the physical evil and the spiritual evil. And so it's almost, two dimensions that are united with Jadis and Tash. It makes sense, maybe even in learning the deplorable word, we know that Jadis had to do something unspeakable, something very dark and terrible. And who knows if her partnership with Tash is the thing that helped her discover the deplorable word.
And it reminds us that although the children and the Narnian characters often have physical characters, earthly, incarnate evil that they have to battle, like St. Paul says, it's actually not against just flesh and blood that we wrestle, but against these evil, invisible spiritual forces.
Powers and the principalities, of the air. Yep, that's right.
Well, that video has been out for, I think, nearly a year. Have any new theories been suggested to you off the back of it?
I would say there have been maybe some further suggestions and developments. Nothing that really that I've held on to particularly. Yeah, I'd love to hear some though, for sure.
Well, if anybody has any suggestions, please write them in the comments below and also on Stuart's channel. And speaking of your channel, Stuart, where can people find out more about you? And I also heard that you launched a Patreon a little while ago.
I did, and I'm so thankful for the community that we have there. My Patreons, I love the fact that they contribute actually to each video. I share my concepts and ideas and bounce ideas off of them. They edit them for me now, so hopefully there are less errors and in them than there were before. But people can find me just right at youtube.com/intothewardrobe. That's the best place to reach out.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. And viewers, please join us again next time when we'll go further up and further in. Cheers.